A state of quietness characterizes the ongoing presidential campaigns. There are chances that the campaign could go unnoticed if it were not for the campaign posters, social media postings, and the coverage on the mainstream media. The atmosphere plays well into what was projected by the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Norbert Mao.
This is going to be the quietest election you have ever seen in the world. It is going to be so quiet, and those who don't want it to be quiet will be made quiet.
However, hardly anyone who witnessed the violent 2021 campaigns can fathom the prediction by Mao. The worst of the campaigns was the crackdown by the security agencies on November 20, 2020, in which, by the government's admission, 54 people were gunned down. Several opposition supporters were also incarcerated. The March Kawempe North by-election added salt to the injury after scores of journalists and opponents of the regime were maimed and arrested on the polling day. These incidents drove the conclusion that they were a precursor to the 2026 campaigns. Surprisingly, a month after the presidential candidates officially started hunting for votes, there has yet to be a major incident encountered during the campaigns.
I believe this kind of peacefulness may be a shock to the opposition because they had anticipated that possibly there would be chaos and sometimes they would thrive under chaos. But it's not. This is what Uganda should be. This is what Uganda is. And this is what NRM has always worked for.
There is a school of thinking that the state functionaries could have picked harsh lessons from the embarrassing incidents of violence witnessed during the Kawempe North by-election.
The reactions towards what happened in Kawempe was something that was decampaigned or talked against by most members of the public. So going forward, they realized that if they still continued with that approach, it could make them still lose more votes.
Whenever there is a mistake, you learn from it. Possibly, the Kawempe by-election, I don't want to attribute anything to anyone, but was a very good learning process that we should never be the same again.
Despite the calm environment, governance analyst Yusuf Serunkuma differs with the rest of the political observers, arguing that it is too early to celebrate the presidential campaigns as peaceful. Serunkuma argues that the worst is yet to come with a mix of parliamentary candidates who are set to start their campaigns.
Wait for NUP to reach Buganda, to start operating within the central region, because right now they are in far-flung places, and that's fairly okay. But let's wait for them to reach Buganda, which will be November, December. As we head to the finishing line, then you can judge if it's going to remain peaceful.
The president of the Forum for Democratic Change, Patrick Amureto-Boy, who was one of the 11 contestants who vied for the presidency in 2021, was roughed up and only dropped by the police at the nomination ground.
If you look at the previous elections, even the first month was full of violence, guns everywhere and people dying and all that. So we should be able to appreciate that this time around, at least we are a little peaceful.
Serunkuma argues that if the atmosphere prevails to the end of the campaigns, it will signify the comfort with which the regime finds the opposition.
With a slight exception to the NUP, right? So you can say all those other people standing against Yoweri Museveni are working the way Museveni wants them to work, right? In fact, you can say they are working on the tunes and control of the sitting government.
Serunkuma asserts that a strategy employed by the NRM after the 2021 elections was to weaken the opposition, who have been left to point the guns at themselves, an argument Chiza agrees with.
Remember the president saying that he was going to work on the opposition political parties. And indeed, we've seen that some of the key opposition figures, some of the vocal politicians, maybe were talked out, I don't know, but they are quiet this time round.
It is anticipated that the ruling regime would be the ultimate beneficiary of a peaceful campaign process.
I would want to imagine that it is a bit frustrating to the opposition because, on the contrary, they've been trying to work on sympathy vote, like we've been beaten, we've been what. So this is a very, very favorable situation for the NRM. And between me and you and all of you people who are watching us, NRM will score very highly because of this smooth environment.
Observers note that the 2021 election violence was fueled by the fact that the People Power Pressure Group, which later metamorphosed into National Unity Platform, was still new on the scene, and thus the extent of the influence they wielded scared the regime. 5 years after the National Unity Platform was formed, there is a belief that although the group remains the biggest threat to the continued rule by Museveni, they have since been infiltrated and weakened. Several of the party's supporters are battling from behind the prison walls, the cases brought against them by the government. The days ahead will determine whether the status quo will prevail. Jackson Onyango, NTV.